It's Sunday and you're on the go.
At 4 o'clock, it's time to slow.
'Cause everybody that you know is
watching.
The Jeff and Katie Show.
The Katie and Jeff.
No, the Jeff and Katie Show.
The Katie and Jeff.
No, the Jeff and Katie Show.
Maybe it's commutable.
It's simply irrefutable.
No matter what, we know that you'll be watching.
The Jeff and Katie Show.
The Katie and Jeff
No,
Show.
the Jeff and Katie Show.
The Katie and Jeff Show. Commutable.
Refutable.
Disputable.
Delusional.
No matter what, we know that you'll be watching. The Jeff and Katie Show.
And Dan.
Oh, wow. We got
Look at
another
you.
special guest over there. It's Dan Klarer. Hello, Dan
well,
Klarer.
it's less. I'm less of a guest. And
You're
more
the
of a-
host.
Oh, the
This
host.
is-
It's
I am-
we should have
it's
changed
now
the
the
song.
Dan
Host.
Show.
We should have called the Jeff and Dan Show.
The Dan and Jeff Show.
The Dan and Jeff Show.
The Jeff and Dan,
Dan
Show.
and Jeff
Oh, show.
With
Katie-
special guest Katie Dahl.
a
That's
special
right.
guest, Katie Dahl.
How about that?
Katie
Yay.
Dahl, how do you like being on the Dan and
Oh.
Jeff and Dan
You're in the hot
show?
seat.
I don't know
Katie.
how it's gonna be. This is my first time ever on the Dan and Jeff Show.
It's the first
It's
time
the first
we've
time
ever
for
hosted it.
Of us all, yeah.
Yeah, it's
We're really excited. It's very, very well rehearsed.
Yeah.
It's very smooth sailing.
Smooth.
Right now. Yeah,
I
smooth.
feel the sailing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are we all together here together as Dan?
Well,
we're-
this being my first time as host, I have no idea.
Oh, you don't? Oh, I see. Well, I'll help you out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're doing a little thing called Raise the Curtain today. Dan.
Oh, I've heard of
Yeah,
this.
Yeah, a little Raise the Curtain thing.
Okay, have we raised the curtain
Yeah,
yet?
we've been raising it.
We've been raising
Yeah,
it.
and part of the deal with raising the curtain is, in the past, we've done this event live, and we would have all the performers who've been, all the actors or whatever that have been
Right.
gathered in rehearsal for 2 weeks, and they would get together on this Sunday of Memorial Day weekend, and they would do an event called Raise the Curtain, and we would celebrate, the upcoming season,
I remember it well.
because you did them,
I've done several of them.
several of them. This is the virtual version, Dave.
This is fantastic.
I know, isn't it good?
It's all shiny and new,
It's shiny and new.
just like Katie Dahl.
What we're doing, Dan, is we've done a whole bunch of these segments today, and we have been celebrating each of the shows that we're going to do in this particular season, of which there are 5.
Oh.
And one of those 5 we are going to talk about during this segment.
So exciting. But first we're going to I'm very excited to hear what it is. What are we going to talk about? What show? But first we have some adulation to do.
Let's adulate.
Let's adulate.
Oh, that's a fun
At this
word.
moment, we would like to adulate Heidi and Bob Ling and Richard and Charlotte Johnston, who are here in the studio with us. Thank you very
Yay!
much for
Thank you for
sponsoring
joining us, you guys,
Raise
and
the
thank you
Curtain
for
and for
sponsoring
joining
the
us.
show.
And I heard that Richard and Charlotte have a exciting anniversary coming up today. What? But it was very exciting anniversary. How many years? 60.
60 years.
That is so
6 years.
amazing.
6 years.
6 years. That's a big
6
one.
years.
That's a big one.
You're looking good.
I've got you beat on that. Wow. Well, congratulations and thank you very much for being our
Yeah, thank you.
our
We really
guests.
appreciate it.
Yay! Adulation.
Adulation.
Oh my gosh. So now, should we talk about what show are we going to talk about?
Oh, let's
Jeff
talk about a little ditty called "The Fisherman's Daughter."
Ooh, that's a
Ditty.
Little
ditty.
ditty, yes.
Little ditty.
So Katie Dahl, who obviously everybody knows Katie Dahl. Katie Dahl has written a show for Northern Sky all by her lonesome,
All by myself.
Well
which is
done.
pretty
Katie.
amazing.
Thank you.
Katie, what was the first show that you wrote for Northern Sky?
Victory Farm. I co-wrote with my friends Emily Colson Salgado and James Valk.
What's that
right.
about?
That's about a baker from Germany
That's
named
what I've-
Joseph
Yep, that's what
and
I've
and a cranky older gentleman from Germany named Wolfgang. And about
Always-
Joseph and Wolfgang show.
Always misunderstood that Wolfgang.
I
Always.
know.
Always.
Poor guy.
it is about POWs picking cherries in Door County during World War II.
Yeah,
Wonderful
exactly.
show.
And so now you as you said, you co-wrote that particular piece. You co-wrote the book and lyrics with Emily, and James composed the music.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for Fisherman's Daughters, you decided to take on all of that by yourself.
Yeah.
What madness possessed you, Katie Dahl?
Well, I would say, I sort of had this, I had this crazy idea that I could do it, and Molly Rohde said, I think you can do it. I think you should try. And
I believe in you.
well, thanks. And I talked to James Valk, and he said, I think you should try. And I was like, okay. And then I started working, and then I had I knew I got pregnant, and I thought, I know I'm not going to have time to do this. And I said to Molly, I'm just going to have James write the music. I don't think I can do it. And she said, I think you should try. And so then I did.
She's very encouraging.
I know, she didn't say, no, you have to write it. She just said, I think you should try it. So then I did try it. It was like what I say to my son at dinner every night. Like, I just think you should try it. Yeah.
Just try it.
Yeah.
So
And
you don't
then
have
he
to keep
throws
eating
the
it.
peas on the floor.
Right. Well, he wouldn't taste my brioche or chocolate day.
Why not? That seems like a kid's dream.
I don't like that yellow stuff, which was a custard. I said
gosh,
that's
I
like
love
frosting, Guthrie.
Yeah.
Like frosting or pudding or
Yeah.
what have you.
Right. Anyway,
Does he not
Yeah.
like pudding?
he doesn't like anything.
Yellow?
He doesn't like anything of any color. I mean, like he likes like yogurt and weirdly he's adopted a fondness for seaweed snacks. But I digress. So yeah, he's
Well,
picky.
digression worth
He's
taking.
Yeah.
working. He's working on it.
Yeah.
So,
Eh,
Katie Dahl,
yeah.
what do you think was the most daunting in your brain of when, going into a show writing by yourself versus writing with others? What was the thing that was like, I don't know if I can do that by alone?
Well, so I write songs like Katie Dahl songs that I
Right.
put on CDs that I sing that are like they're not always from my perspective, but I sort of thought that like writing a musical I was right. Writing a musical required certain kinds of energetic beats at certain times and maybe a greater range of songwriting than I had asked of myself as a singer-songwriter before. So it just required more dynamics maybe than I had. So I thought like I don't know that I can write an anthemic, whatever. I don't know that I can. I know that I can write songs about myself, like because that's about my own emotional truth. To me, that's like the goal,
Yeah.
or some emotional truth that I believe in. But to write from other people's perspectives seemed like, oh well, I have to access different parts of my musical. I didn't trust the breadth of my musicality to sort of support. But it has turned out to be a wonderful exercise, and I feel like I found things in my writing that I would never have found if I hadn't tried it. And I'm
Sometimes you
happy
just
with
need
the
to
results.
try.
Sometimes you just need to try. It's the
try
moral
it.
of the story.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard Molly
So,
Rohde say that a lot.
so in thinking about the different kinds of music that you would need for Fisherman's Daughters and the need for those songs to come from character, was that driving your ability to write for them in some ways too? Or was it a sort of a combination of musical vocabulary plus that, emotional impulse?
Well, I think it did. As I met with the band a couple weeks ago, and with Dennis, the bass player, and with John, the guitar player, and I sort of realized when I met with them that the characters really do have different musical voices, but it's so interesting how much happens on a subconscious level that you're not, as a writer, doing on some things you are doing on purpose and they don't work. Sometimes you set out to do something and you're like, I will, but you can't really strong arm something into being something that it's not. But sometimes the piece knows better than your brain knows. And so I was explaining to them like, well, when John, this sort of enthusiastic, shiny faced, young guy shows up, his chords are all very, cowboy chords. Like he's got, it's like he doesn't have a lot of complexity in his musical voice. He's like 1-4-5 easy folky. and then one of the two sisters, for example, she really feels a lot more watercolory. The younger Nora, the younger of the two sisters, her chords are really suspended and augmented and, all that stuff. So I didn't realize that until I was sort of preparing for that meeting.
Yeah.
Did that come, or the realization of like, oh, this is a device I can use as a songwriter to make a vocabulary of these characters? Did that come early on, or once you started writing, you were like,
After I did it, I realized I had done it.
It happened subconsciously.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've said a couple of times to people after hearing the reading and hearing the versions of the songs from the workshop, I feel like you as a writer have this is the first time I've heard a show where I'm like, oh, that feels like a Katie Dahl show, the way that, you know, a Fred Alley show feels like a Fred Alley show, you know, and his music and his writing, and you're hearing that style and vibe, and it's like, oh, that's inherently from his mind and his brain, and this is very much of your mind, and the use of language, you know, you have such beautiful use of language in your regular songs, on top of, you know, the stuff that you've written for musicals, and so it's nice to hear that as a singular voice of you versus coming through you and Emily and James.
Right, a more mediated.
Right.
Well, and I've been thinking about Fred a lot as I sort of look back at, now that the piece is sort of a whole, and I look back at it, I see a lot of motifs that sort of come up again and again in the show, and I feel like one thing I learned from being really steeped in Fred Alley's lyrics as a kid was he wasn't scared to use those motifs and use the exact same lines over and over again, like in different, you know, refract them through different prisms, kind of. And I have noticed like that. I think I take comfort in thinking like he always has like, you can't plow the north wind, you can't sow thin air. This is like this is in so many different moments of Fred Alley's musicality, and I feel like, oh, it works in all those places. It doesn't feel derivative, it feels honest or authentic. So I've been thinking about that a lot as I look back, like, oh, there's the wind again. The wind is in every damn song of the show.
You have a lovely wind motif.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So let's tell everybody a little bit about the story.
Oh,
'cause
let's.
It's a really interesting story.
Yeah, so this show is set in 1908 in Fish Creek, and it is about, it's about two sisters whose relationship is kind of on the fritz. One of them has been living in Chicago and has not been in touch with her sister who's been living alone in the woods in Fish Creek. And they're sort of forced to deal with their differences when the state of Wisconsin decides to put Peninsula State Park right where their house is. And this really did happen in 1908. The creation of Peninsula State Park. The sisters are fictional, though inspired by real people, but they're totally fictional. But the reality is that 160 people did live in the area of Fish Creek that is now Peninsula State Park. And they some of them were happy to leave and some weren't. So I've been saying, and I really think it's true, that this is going to be the world's preeminent, eminent domain musical.
I will not bet against you on that.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Well, that's wonderful. So you're going to sing a song?
I'm going to sing a song.
From the show?
Yeah.
The title song, right?
That's right.
Good. We're going to invite our friend James Kaplan to come in and sit at my piano bench, and he and Katie will regale you with a song from Fisherman's Daughters.
Great. Yeah, I wrote this song trying to justify the title of the play to myself. I thought, I've decided to call it Fisherman's Daughters. Is a good title? Well, I better write a title song. So I did. So this is the older sister, Sarah, sings this sort of to her younger sister, Nora, in absentia, near the beginning of the play. You ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do I need to count you in, or I'll just start on my own? Okay. I am the fisherman's daughter. I know waves and wind. I know salt and barrels and tin. I know the ways of the water. I know blades and twine. I always was his rock of Gibraltar, and he was mine. I know the fisherman's story, a boat across the sea. Cut a clearing, built a cabin, planted an apple tree. He learned to fish from Doc and from Dory, took a wife at 33. She died at 40 and left him 2 daughters, Nora and me. always the smart one. Took a job in Chicago. I stuck around. Now it's been 2 years that Papa's been gone. She went back to the city the very same day that we laid him in the ground. When I was the fisherman's daughter, I knew how the days would end. Light a candle in the window and guide him back home again. I knew how to pray he'd be safe on the water. I knew how to pace the floor. Now, Nora, I don't know if I should leave a light in the window for you anymore. Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Well, we've had the pleasure of at Northern Sky of watching this show develop over the years, which is all a part of the New Works process. When was the first draft of this written, Katie?
2016. I wrote it as I was pregnant. I cogitated on it starting in 2013. And then when I got pregnant, I was like, oh, my time is about to evaporate. That was correct. And so I really got engaged. We had the first a reading of it in July of 2016, so when my son was 3 months
And
old.
the show has 4 characters in it, and the actors who did that very first reading were...
Ava Nimmer, Kelly Doherty. Happy birthday, Kelly Doherty.
Yes, indeed.
Happy birthday,
Kelly!
Alex Campia and Chase Steger.
And who is going to be in the cast this summer?
Ava Nimmer, Kelly Doherty, Alex Campia, and Chase Steger.
That's correct. Yeah, it's really. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, and we've talked about this a couple of times now on different segments because shows are written at Northern Sky and are original, and Katie is steeped in Northern Sky-ness. Being able to write for people that you've seen on stage, that you know, and that you come to love is inspirational.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a great gift.
Yeah, it really is. So that show is going to open when?
June 14th. It runs June 14th through July 10th at the park. It's about the park, and it's in the park.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. I have
Yeah.
to say, like,
Yeah.
I do my running. I run like 3 or 4 times a week in the park, and I just think, like, I run through that park, and I think, like, this is so cool. Like, it
Yeah.
is so cool that I'm, like, thinking about this play. I mean, I do so much thinking when I'm running. So I'm like, this play has been born in this woods, and it's and then it's going to be like birthed in the woods too. You know, like it's. I mean, that's the same thing. Anyway, it's gonna, but it's gonna be in the woods. It's gonna be raised in the woods.
Yeah, it's going to be raised in
Wild
the woods.
play.
Yeah. Well, I just lost my train of thought.
But you can buy tickets starting on June 1st.
Oh
is
yes,
one
this
thing
is
that
what
I
was
wanted
going
to
to talk
say.
about
Yeah.
is the fact that it's amazing to me that 2 weeks from tomorrow,
Whew.
right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
We will have an audience in Princess State Park watching
feels so
Fisherman's
good.
Daughters.
I know.
So let's talk a little bit about this particular production and just the whole nature of how we decided to do what we have decided to do for this 5-show season. Fisherman's Daughters, when we last visited it, was in 2019, and we did a workshop in the Gould,
On this very stage, this very spot.
which was great, really great. And then we invited people in to hear a reading at the end of that workshop process. And we determined, based on that workshop experience and people's feedback from that we indeed wanted to produce Fisherman's Daughters for sure in an upcoming season. We weren't sure exactly when. We hadn't announced anything. And then, of course, everything kind of went haywire with COVID. So what we've decided to do is a little bit different from what we had initially thought we might do with the piece, right? You want to talk a little bit about that and what you feel about it?
Yeah. So we're doing what we're calling a preview production. So the way that I conceived of this piece and that we thought about it, I think as a team, was for it to be a staged show like any typical show you might see. And what we're going to do instead for this year is we're going to have a production with a little bit less onstage movement, but just as much story and heart. And I mean, I think it's going to be just a great. I'm so excited. And when Jeff and Molly suggested that we do this, I was just in the middle of reading, and I still am because I'm savoring it. This book about the writing of Hadestown by my idol Anais Mitchell. She won the Tony for writing her show Hadestown, and talked about how many different iterations of that show there have been, how much she just keeps working on it. And that's inspiring to me to think that nothing, that I'm excited to see this show and to tinker and to, I'm really interested in, and what this is going to allow us to do partly is this amazing band that we have together. Dennis Johnson, John Lewis, and Andrew Crow are going to be able to really coalesce around creating arrangements for the show, as I am a lowly guitar player and not a Mozart am I not. So the idea is that this band will really have this time to live in and create and settle into some really great arrangements as a three-piece acoustic band. So
Yeah,
I
it's
am
not very
pumped.
it's not very often that you have the luxury, which we've sort of afforded ourselves because of our circumstances. Again, customizing our season, of being able to have the musicians sort of organically work together and discover what works best for the piece.
Yeah.
And that's
It's so great for a folk musical.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the folk process for
Right.
sure. That's
Right.
how it ideally would go, and
Yep.
just to talk to a guitar player, talk to John and be like, this is how I play this chord. I'm sure you might have a better way of playing it,
Right,
but
right.
like what a thrill to and also to have a piece where there's no piano. That's not that
not normal
typical.
for us.
So
Yeah.
so it's going to have a really particular oral soundscape.
Yeah, and Andrew Crow happens to be a really wonderful violin player.
Yeah.
So,
and many other things.
Well,
Blair.
many
Yeah.
other things, but that's a flavor that I
Yeah.
think we always yearn for out there in the park, and it's very difficult to be able to justify bringing in somebody who only plays that instrument.
Right.
But Andrew not only plays that instrument, but plays many, many other instruments. So having Andrew as part of that soundscape, I think, is really going to be wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, John and Dennis have already, more than proved their chops in our pit. They worked together last year on We Like It Where with Alyssa and with Colin O'Day, and they created a wonderful soundscape for We Like It Where. And
Yeah.
I know they're just going to be great for
Yeah.
this piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly exciting.
Yeah.
Well, we have that to look forward to.
We
and
sure do.
How great that'll be kicking off the Peninsula Park
So great.
amphitheater season.
There's going to be some amazing costume coordination.
Yes. Well, I'm in the process right now of pulling some costumes, and we're talking to the actors, and as we've said many times, it's customized.
Yep.
And so we're kind of looking at more silhouettes
Yep.
of things, and there might not be full on like period costumes, but there will be the vibe and the look of things, and things that are items that are really easy for the actors to wear in the summer, in the evening, but
Sure.
also to give them that feel of like long skirts, or something that's uptight, or something that has a collar or no collar. So if you squint at the stage, you may as well be looking at the full realized Broadway production.
That's interesting.
So
yeah.
now, are you saying that you're not going with my idea of Katie Dahl has friends shirts? I was thinking.
They'll be under. Those will be the under.
Oh yeah, okay, great.
Yes,
That's fine.
Everyone's
as
wearing
long as we
Katie
know
Dahl
that they're
has
there.
friends.
Yeah, okay.
Good
great.
undergarments.
Yes.
And she meant to say the Jeff and Katie.
I meant the Jeff and
show
Katie show, Katie and Jeff show
t-shirts.
shirts.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
That's what you
we're,
meant to say.
We're making long johns for the others.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yes, right. The Katie Dahl long johns.
Commemorative.
Yeah, well, we should just expound on what you were just talking about just a little bit, because it too is part of how we devised this particular season. When back in November, when we would normally start talking about doing a season and what it was going to be.
Right.
And even before that, frankly, we were slammed in this country by COVID, and everybody was saying there was probably going to be another shutdown for a while. And really over the holidays, I mean, everything went haywire. So, you know, you're looking at one another thinking, how are we possibly going to plan a season when we don't have permission to do anything? Nothing. Zero. But plan we did anyway. And part of what we planned was that we knew we would not be able to have a full, throttle, all
Bells and
guns
whistles,
blazing
everything, right.
kind of a season. So instead, what we've done is we've asked Dan to imagine the costumes from a different perspective, instead of from a design aspect of, okay, this, here it's all drawn out, and it's going to be the look for the show, and they're going to be costume changes here, and here's the whole costume plot, and you'll go back to the dressing room, and you'll have a dresser, and somebody will help
Right.
you with that change, and then they'll do your laundry when the evening is over. We don't have any of that.
We're going in very true fashion to the company. We're going back to our roots.
That's exactly right.
And doing what is essentially story theater and doing a little more minimalistic storytelling. So it really does, because like I am very focused as a costumer to make sure that the actors are comfortable and feel like they are living still in their character, because costume pieces make a huge difference to a lot of actors, but also to really focus it on the words and the story itself, which is so charming.
Yeah.
And, you know, this show in particular, I think, sings, all the high notes of relationships.
Yeah.
Really low notes, though.
Low,
Yeah.
alto, golden, dulcet
Alto.
tones.
The contralto
Yes,
notes,
yes.
of relationships.
But
Well-
we want to showcase that. So, having maybe the costumes be, the clothing be more subdued or muted, depending on, but still living in those characters, so that you're not seeing just people in everyday clothes,
Yeah.
but you're seeing like, oh, this is what I should be thinking about in the back of it's that subconscious quality,
Yeah.
because the audience sees it, and then, we don't have to have costume changes. They go, oh, that's that character.
Yeah.
And because they're all four of these people are living in their specific character the whole time, they don't have to worry about costume changes, and it's going to be wonderful.
People's imagination loves to be unleashed in that way. It
Yeah.
really does. I mean, that's the
Especially
thing.
in the park.
Oh, for sure. That's the thing I learned the most from working with Paul Sills on story theater pieces is just trust them. Trust them. Trust them to use their imagination. You don't have to supply everything for them because they want to make it up too. you know?
And we're looking at, I've been actually looking at a lot of Heritage Ensemble pictures and seeing like Doc Heidi in these like sort of, there's the puffy shirts
Yep.
with the vests.
Oh, yes.
And then like a 70s pants
Oh, right.
with like sneakers.
True.
Which is not necessarily what we're going to do for this show, but
Yeah.
like that kind of vibe of, I don't really care what they're wearing on their feet necessarily, but I get this has this heritage feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah,
we're,
yeah.
we're all going for.
Well, it'll be fun. That's
Yeah.
for sure. It's going to be delightful. I'll tell you, Katie, after your last rewrite, and we hadn't been able to visit the piece in person, we did it on Zoom. And I was just struck in listening to it, just at how beautiful the story is and how great the relationships are, how funny it is, of course, because it's you. I think it's really going to be served well by doing this preview production. So.
Yeah, I think so too. I am so excited. I want to be 2 weeks away from producing a play that I wrote all the time. I think that this is like, I was saying, it's like a crossword. You know how the end of the crossword you feel awesome?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, there's so few squares, and you're having so many good adrenaline feelings because you're filling it in.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm gonna start another one, and then
Oh.
you're like, oh no.
No, what did I do that for?
Yeah.
Stay in the
so
moment.
I'm like, I'm gonna start another play.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Where are we in this segment?
I think we're ready to
We ready to wrap this
play 'em
baby
out.
up?
But team, I just want you to understand what's coming next. 5:00, check in with our friend, development director Holly Feldman, and song with Molly Rohde, James Kaplan, and me from my favorite play, Our Night in Frog Station.
Oh, for heaven's
And
sake.
then at 6:00, Northern Sky Fashion Spy.
Oh.
also on Facebook. And then at 7 o'clock, the premiere of Not Even Remotely, which we already talked about.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And then the Zoom after party. You have 9 more minutes to buy your tickets.
Alto tones.
More minutes
So
to buy
there
your
we are,
tickets.
there
Here
we
we go.
The Jeff and Katie Show.
The Katie and Jeff
No,
Show.
The Jeff and Katie Show.
The Katie and Jeff Show. Commutable.
Refutable.
Disputable.
Delusional.
No matter what, we know that you'll be watching. The Jeff and Katie Show.
Dan and Jimmy.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you at
Bye.
5 o'clock. Thanks to our special guest.